Do you find yourself using more pornography than you desire to in your ideal expression? Do you notice the impact of it on your social skill and your emotional capacity? Are you desiring to let go of this habit in exchange for deepened masculine presence and grounding in service of your highest good in sex, dating, and relating? Welcome. My name is Louis Brandmeier. This is Becoming Conscious with Pornography, based on almost 20 years of experiencing, experimenting with, growing through to the other side of various degrees of intensity of using pornography and having the habit of use and the desire not to use. I've had long stretches and periods where there was no exposure to or experience of soft or hardcore pornography. And I noticed the skyrocketing of my intuitive capacity, my tender heart's sensitivity, my cognitive fluidity, and my magnetism and attractiveness to the opposite sex, whether on dates and in a general sense or in the particular realm of a relationship where I was intimate with a partner over a long period. So, we're going to talk about why we do this, when, what's the impact, how to stop, how to remediate when you use, and I'm going to do it fairly quickly and efficiently so that you have a lot to work on, but don't have to invest a lot of time to be exposed to that whole realm that I'm going to create for you. So why do we do it? We do it generally because we're horny and have no partner. We do it because it's a habit that is built up for us. We think that pornography is a form of sexual self-expression, celebrating liberation of kinks and different styles of scenes and types of partners. And I think it was Jean-Jacques Rousseau, famous French philosopher. He said, it's great self-pleasure in pornography because I don't even have to ask consent of a woman. I can just do what I want. And so you look at that and it starts to have the bleeding edge of like, wait, what did I just hear? And you start to become aware that pornography, okay, I'm not going to speak too deeply to the cultural or societal structures that lead to pornography. I'm not going to go with Andrea Dworkin from Old School Sexual Ethics, who says pornography is embodied rape. But I am going to say that given the choice for most people between sex with intimacy, with a partner that you get to continue with without experiencing a painful breakup later, or sex without intimacy, but having the desire for it, that is less satisfying. Sex, as experienced when you're jerking off to a woman on a screen, is the epitome of sex without intimacy. Oxytocin cannot be released in the same way that touch and eye contact can give it to us with a woman in person. So let me ask you, would you rather have sex with a screen, or would you rather have sex with a woman who responds to you, who actually gives you affection, attention, connection, love, communion? I think this is, generally speaking, what we would desire more. And if you've got a strong libido, but nowhere to go with it, and maybe your libido has been increased by supplementation or working out, maybe you're working on yourself and you're building up testosterone. Well, it's time to focus that flow of sexual energy in another direction. So I find in my past, when I would eat certain foods that would unbalance me, or I would take certain superfoods that would supercharge me sexually, I would find myself alone at home in the absence of oxytocin and social nutrition. Sometimes what we're actually looking for is connection and communication, and we go to porn because it's just what's there, and it's easy to pull like a lever and give ourselves the stimulation of dopamine. Now, it activates a dopamine reward system, which has us crave and quest for another orgasm with another partner. There's the Coolidge effect, where most mammals if they mate and have sex and an ejaculatory orgasm with a partner, most male mammals, they'll then want new and different different female partners. So more, better, different. You have a way of situating yourself and grounding yourself snugly upon the hedonic treadmill with a carrot at the end of the stick that you're chasing that you'll never reach. A beast whose hunger you can never sate. The sexual desire inside of you. Now, there's another reward system called the oxytocin reward system that is cultivated through touch, eye contact, engagement with a partner in a loving, sensual way that's not obsessed with the checking off on the to-do list, having an orgasm that involves an ejaculation. And there are orgasms that can be full body, that can be really nourishing and nurturing to your commitment to deep emotional intimacy. Now, if I'm speaking to you, I'm assuming that you are one of those men who actually cares about, is interested in, and is committed to deep emotional intimacy. If you're not, well, the lack of emotional intelligence, fitness, and alchemy is one of the biggest problems on the planet, and it's killing civilization. So that's a whole nother conversation we can have, but I'm not going to do it here. So, for us to use pornography, it does a number of things that don't work. It has us take on the sexual energy of whoever we're viewing. Whether you know it, like it, agree with it, believe it or not, the energy with which a piece of content is created is the energy with which it is consumed. So you're consuming the equivalent of a mass-produced fast food burger in terms of sexual nutrition. It is not going to fill your stomach. It is not going to be healthy for you at the deepest levels compared to what's available. And you can look at your own experience. Sex with a woman is probably more fun than sex with a screen. Sex with a woman where the fullness of your heart, intimacy, and emotional expression is possible is probably ultimately going to be long-term more fulfilling than the short-term quest for pleasure that hookup culture has embedded in most men's psyches. We think that pornography, again, is an act of sexual liberation and freedom and self-expression. It's domestication. It is you having your balls emptied and your stomach filled to a certain degree, or feeling like it's full, so that you won't have full balls and an empty stomach enough to be a threat to what is dysfunctional at civilization at large. Now, the question then becomes, okay, is it demonic? Like, are we going to go full on Christian with this? Are there dark forces behind pornography? I don't know, man. But what I do know is that I've had personal experiences with deliverance work where, whether it's a shamanic perspective or a straight up exorcism, forces were removed from my nervous system and others around me. And there are great videos online of people engaging in prayers and meditations that reach in and pull things out of a man's nervous system, of his energy field. And if you're not a believer in energetics, well, that's a whole nother conversation. You can trust it believes in you. You can trust it has an impact on you. And energetic, spiritual, emotional intelligence, these are the things that were preached and practiced by the most successful, grounded, financially achieving entrepreneurs I encountered in my journey as an entrepreneur, as a coach. And so I opened my mind, and the more I opened my mind, the more successful I got. So that's just one great argument in the direction of why I pay attention to that. So there's a domestication that takes place. There's a dominant sociocultural praise, practice, and underestimation of the negative impact of pornography. Just look at Gary Young's The Great Porn Experiment. He was like, what if we all grew up smoking cigarettes? And then we started wondering, like, why are people dying of lung cancer? And we just didn't know, right? Why are people, have black tar on their teeth? Oh, maybe it's because we're all fucking smoking cigarettes and that's not good for us. But pornography, no, it's celebrated since the 60s and following as a measure of our sexual liberation and the sexual revolution in culture. I'm not saying all pornography is bad and wrong. I'm saying I'm discerning that it is dysfunctional given what we're ultimately committed to. You look at 50% of marriages ending in divorce. I wonder why. Possibly because the activation of the wandering eye that has a man unable to find the activation of that deep oxytocin wash and sensitivity and pleasure system in a single relationship. So there's a whole conversation to have around what are the downstream negative impacts of pornography. I'm assuming you want to either release it as a habit from your behavioral repertoire, or you're wanting to evolve and become more conscious and aware in how you use it. And there are more conscious and aware ways of using it. So it's often a trauma response to stress. We're often blotting out pain and running from trauma inside of ourselves through seeking pleasure, both in casual sex and in pornography. So it's an instance by instance basis. We're not here to feel happy. We're here to feel fully. Once we feel fully, then we get to feel happier than we've ever felt before. And here's the thing. If you are resisting feeling something painful inside of you, you're repressing, suppressing, avoiding, packing, and stacking it, it will come back and possibly stronger. So I invite you to deal with it now so that you don't have to entertain it and the suffering that it brings for much longer. Now, there's an impact that I have felt viscerally of from the use of porn: insomnia, uh, apathy, pockets of apathy coming in, feeling more trigger happy, more likely to react to situations rather than respond consciously and in a grounded way. There's a dulling out of my heart. There's an uninspiration. There's an intuition and an emotion blunting. And even worse, the tastes that we have change and get obscured, confused, and obfuscated by our use of pornography. Someone who has a monogamous heart might think, oh, my cock is polyamorous. Why? Because I'm using pornography and my body is responding. Well, of course your body responds. You've got an occipital lobe area that within 500 milliseconds ranks a woman as hot or not. And you've got a whole nervous system activation pattern given you by evolution that has you respond to a fertile potential mate whenever one is around. It's like a dog and waving a steak in front of that dog when the dog is hungry. That doesn't mean that that's who you are or what will ultimately serve you is to eat steak every time you're hungry. You're not a dog, you're a human. You have the power of reason and free will and emotional self-regulation, at least I hope. So going back to this impact of taking on the energy of when you have an orgasm with a screen, you're bonding with that screen. So there is some measure of slight oxytocin release. It's not as much as when there's sensual touch and deep connection and emotional intimacy with someone. But you're bonding with the screen and you're taking on the energy of whoever created that pornography. So I have found that pockets of apathy then become things that I have to work through when I am using pornography and having an orgasm with the person there. Because there's a whole argument to be made that porn stars, and I'm not saying all of them, but I'm saying arguably at least some and possibly most of them, are seeking attention from daddy because they were traumatized and didn't get the love, the nurturing that they were looking for back then. And they learned that men paid attention to them when they flashed their bodies and that they had the power to control men's attention and what they got from men through being a sexual being revealing themselves, right? So you look at Instagram models and you look at how so many of them have an OnlyFans page, right? And I'm not saying it's not good that, women have found a way to leverage their God-given gifts and strengths. I'm saying the ways that they're choosing to do that are detrimental to us and to them ultimately, arguably. And that's a whole nother conversation. But in terms of your performance experience and personal impact of pornography, I invite you to notice how you feel afterwards and ask yourself, do you want to feel that way? Dullness of mind, inspiration, intuition, emotion. and now working through higher reactivity, an insidious, subtle apathy, and a likelihood to judge yourself. Most people, most men who are wanting to get out of porn addiction or use, they slip into judgment on themselves and feel shame for having used. So I've got my notes down here. What do we do instead of using pornography? How do we stop? There's an app called freedom.to that you can have on your computer or any device that enables you access to the internet, where you can restrict your use of pornography during certain sessions. And once it's on your computer, now on your phone, it's an app, and there's the tricky thing of like deleting it or not. But I invite you to consider whenever you install the app and then it prevents you from activating certain things at certain times or whatever, you're given a moment to be mindful. You're literally given a moment to take distance from the stimulus of the desire for porn and the response of using it. And it takes some effort. One of my mentors likes to say, it doesn't take 10 years to quit cigarettes. It takes one moment of decision. And yes, you pursue and persist in that moment of decision over and over and over again as cravings arise. But once you've decided, cut off from all other options and said, hey, I'm not going to do this anymore, then it's great. By the way, and the impact that I forgot, I was a little distracted in my comment because this is so impactful, of pornography is further social miscalibration, isolation, alienation, and even nihilism. The very thing that you want most, that you thought porn at a visceral level would get you, this connection with women, this and look at this, right? Ideally, what men are looking at is the POV shot, or a woman who's giving them through the camera the attention, significance, affection that they're seeking, the sexual desire that they're not receiving. And giving your sexual energy to someone who's not present in that way, especially with an ejaculatory orgasm, then damages your ability to get the actual nutrition in real life. And then what a lot of men do is they feel guilty and ashamed, then they use another ejaculation and another orgasm to deal with what they're feeling after doing what they didn't want to do. Been there. And as someone's tastes change, as the dopamine system activates, the oxytocin system gets obscured, their true desires get obfuscated, then they start craving things like polyamory or settling for shitty and non-optimal sex partners because, or relationship partners, because the sex is available or good enough. What? So it's really damaging and messing up our relationship to ourselves sexually. It inculcates an overemphasis on sex, a myopia, if you will. You can only see this one thing through awakening the beast. So how do we stop it? And how do we remediate from it? Well, one thing that I have found that works really well is, again, this freedom.to, which you can schedule sessions. I have a session scheduled from 11:59 to 12, from 11:59 p.m. to or excuse me, from 12:01 a.m. to 11:59 p.m. So it's like a minute when I'm super asleep where I could shift the thing, but otherwise it's active. And I found that to be really useful. There's this pattern of noticing, as I said, the stimulus response connection, right? Noticing when you have the desire for porn and choosing a different action. For me, it was getting up and dancing. This was really helpful. I get this from a digital habits coach. Then there's also how to hold and recirculate sexual energy so that it does not drive you and instead gives you the capacity for thriving in all areas. There's the microcosmic orbit, which you can find taught in the multi-orgasmic man, involving tension in your pubococcygeal muscle, also known as the PC, at the base of your spine, between your balls and your asshole. And then breathing up, imagining a ball of light that contains the sexual energy. Breathing and then breathing it back down into your crotch. I'm giving you a very rough wrapping for it. If you want the full detail and the visualization and the practice, go to the Multi-Orgasmic Man. Then there's Sat Kriya, which a Kundalini yoga teacher taught me earlier this year. So you go like this, and you don't have to squat down, but I'm just doing that in order to show you. And you're bringing the stomach, satnam, sat, 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 sat. You do this for about 3.5 minutes to 5 minutes. Satnam, 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 satnam. And what you're imagining doing is pumping the energy up into your third eye. Now, you don't have to be spiritual for this to work, but it does help to not be as horny throughout the day and to be more present and easeful. Finally, there's the Babaji Tantra Cobra Breath taught in a book called Jewel in the Lotus. That is much subtler and requires actual initiation to use it most effectively, but a lot of the techniques in that book will be super helpful. And let's see, so remediation. You can use Men's Support by Banyan Botanicals. It's a very balanced, integrated formula that will activate your will and your capacity for being sexual and being sexually vital and alive. But the supplements, they have a self-intelligence. It's adaptogenic, really, is in my experience, where the support will go where you need it rather than just going where you don't need it, namely like, oh, let's get this guy horny, so to speak. Cold showers. There's a badass smoothie that I could recommend. Wild blueberries, bananas, cachava, maca, let's see, velvet deer antler, which you can look up online, and maple syrup and goji berries. All of those taken together create the most delicious, nutritious, uplifting ojas in Ayurveda increasing smoothie. Ojas is the fluid that leads to sexual fluids. And so there's also this experience of fresh water plunging that I find is really cleansing for the nervous system. It's like an ice bath. It doesn't have to be super cold, but what it does is it resets the nervous system and cleanses both the apathy and any holdings after sex that are not aligned pornography-wise. And finally, you can tap with the decrees of mastery systems. So I breathe, I touch, I stay, I feel, I love, and then I've got 1 more minute with you all. If you guys want more help with this, how to apply and integrate this into your lives, I absolutely recommend that you comment below and I'll send you a link to schedule a call with me. And that's it for now. Love and appreciate you all. This has been my workshop on becoming conscious with pornography. May it serve, support, and give you great growth in this area, if not complete mastery. Go, y'all, and make love easy.